Hello and welcome to the 2021 start for the Chester and North Wales BCS branch. Thank you all for coming and joining us. It's a great pleasure that I can introduce somebody that I have worked closely with on Cyber Girls First, which is a voluntary position that I help out with. And I've been fortunate enough to meet Patrick on a number of occasions and listen to his great talks. So that was why we asked him to come along. So Patrick has been the education lead for the CyberFirst project at the NCSC and been there for a number of years. I won't steal any of his great introduction, but I shall now hand over. And what we'd like to do is, if you've got questions, please put them into the questions on the app, and I will just keep an eye on those and facilitate as we go through. Patrick loves engagement and people chatting as he goes along, so please do keep the questions coming in, and we'll keep it engaging throughout. So yes, thank you very much, Patrick.
Right, thank you all very much. As it hopefully says here, my name is Patrick, and as you can see there, I've got one letter for a surname. So either I'm very special, or as actually the case, I work for an intelligence agency, and I can't do this kind of thing if I put my full name on the piece. So as you can see there, I've got a bunch of logos. Hopefully you're familiar with some of them. I work for the National Cybersecurity Centre, which is a part of GCHQ. I've been at GCHQ about 12 years now, doing a variety of stuff, some of it technical, some of it a bit like this, where I just get to talk about what I've done rather than doing the ones and the zero stuff anymore. I've put a little link to Cyber Aware, which is, you might see some TV adverts. The NCSC is really trying to tailor advice down to the citizen. So rather than being right at the top of the tree dealing with, you know, national security and big organizations and defense contractors and kind of critical national infrastructure like power and gas, and we're trying to help people. So kind of that's what the NCSC is all about. So right, my talk to, oh yeah, the CyberFirst big badge in the middle. You know, that's our youth brand, trying to help schools, help students navigate the really difficult situation, which is, what is cyber? What does it mean? How do I protect myself? How do I take opportunities as they come along? So hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll have an idea of how all these brands kind of come together. Right, housekeeping talk. This is what I'm going to talk to you about. Day one of training, they always tell you to tell people what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've told them. So this is what I'm doing. Ordinarily, this is relevant. I thought I might have a webcam on just for a tiny bit, make it a bit more interesting, but I'm not going to do that today, so don't need to pay any attention to that. Humor warning, I have been told I'm quite funny in feedback that I've got evidence of, so it must be true. But I thought I'd try and warn you, I'm not your conventional straight up and down spy type. This is a little bit death by PowerPoint in that I've got loads of slides, so any temptation you have to distract me, get me off on a tangent, I really appreciate that, so that we can, you know, make this a bit more interactive. I'm going to talk to you about why us spies are messing about with the education sector. It's not our natural place. Normally we don't talk to anyone, tell anyone who we are. So it's a bit unusual that we found ourselves in this situation, that I do things like this, talking to schools, talking to teachers, and generally being public facing. It was a bit of a shock when I started it. I'm going to talk to you about what we're trying to do and why, and then how you can get involved. You might have heard of CyberFirst Schools. You might have heard of a girls competition that we run for year 8s, and you might have heard of some of our courses and other opportunities. So I'm going to go through a few of those, kind of enlighten you, and hopefully that's the kind of things you were expecting. If you weren't expecting to hear about any of that, I'd leave now if I were you. And as it says there, questions whenever you have one. Right, okay, inspiring our youth to become cyber defenders and using all my PowerPoint tricks against the dark arts. So we've got to make this exciting, because, you know, once upon a time, cybersecurity professionals were called information insurance specialists. And no one really wanted to be an information assurance specialist, apart from information assurance specialists who hope to go back to that terminology. But we're trying to, you know, demystify this, make it a bit more interesting. Effectively, you know, get kids thinking about this in a slightly different way, get schools thinking about it in a slightly different way, which means that we need to try and be, try and hook people, try and get you interested, try and get the students interested, and use all the tricks that we have, because playing with technology is really great fun. And yet, unfortunately, in school sometimes you haven't got a kit, you haven't got the opportunity, you don't have students who really want to learn some of this stuff. So how do we help you to do that? And I hope I'm not patronizing teachers, but I do recognize just how little time you sometimes have to work with students, and how much you need to get done in that time. Okay, so why are we doing this kind of stuff? So in reality, we as an employer want to employ diverse people in technical jobs, not just us, but the entire UK PLC. Nearly every survey you read, if you look at advanced technical practitioners within an organization, about 8%, 9% might be female. They might tell you there's 20% working in tech roles, but often, if they're working in sales or they're working in HR within a tech type recruitment role, then they put them down as tech to try and boost the figures. But the reality, if they've been in an organization for 5 years in a technical position, then that's quite a good stat, and that's the one where they really drop out to that 10% mark. And we want all kinds of diversity, not just a gender one. We want creative people that have done humanities, people that have done arts, people that do music, let alone the people that stuck to computer science and technical stuff. That's how good technical teams put together. That's how good solutions are made. So that's what we're after. That's our underlying reason why we're trying to change stuff in school, to see if we can change what happens, what we can select from at 18 and after they've graduated. And nearly every job has a tech element. So the more people that learn tech stuff and do tech stuff, hopefully the better UK PLC will position itself in the global market. We're trying to identify ourselves as different, post Brexit. So if we can be ahead of the curve, our population's ahead of the curve, if we can raise the bar, I think sometimes they say, then that would be a really good thing to do. And I'm trying to show within school that link between the tech jobs and the technical elements coming into all kinds of odd jobs, that the students can maybe see technology and computer science as a route to everything they want to do, rather than perhaps the technical things and the hacker orientated things they might just associate with computer science and programming. We've got all of this stuff coming, normally called the fourth industrial revolution, but all the automation and artificial intelligence, all that robotics, VR. I mean, VR could become massive as we don't travel quite so much, for either pandemic reasons or for global footprint reasons. If we can have really great experiences, but not smash the planet, then that'd be great. We've got 5G, amazing internet coming everywhere. There's going to be so many new jobs to do with kind of people being entertained by things now available within 5G that I couldn't even begin to envisage now. But could you imagine a scenario where you get a ticket for a football game, you put on a VR headset, you've got 5G, it's all enabled, and you feel like you're in the ground. You can have one of the really awesome box seats, or best position seats behind the goal. You get augmented reality running. If you make a noise, it could be broadcast to the players so that they feel there's a crowd, even if there is no crowd. These are things that may happen in our futures. If those people are old or incapacitated some way, but they still feel engaged by a sporting event because it feels like they're there and they're contributing. Those could be the kind of jobs coming in the future. And then data science. I mean, it's just massive, the opportunities. All that big data stuff. You're either defending against what people know about you, or exploiting that data to find opportunities to get advertising in front of people. So really good opportunities for students in so many different industries and sectors to look at technology, what's coming into their sector, and maybe learn a little bit more. I mean, that's my business case to students in a nutshell. And there we go. We have the computer science GCSE stats. So if we're losing about 80% of kids from the incremental normal learning path at aged 14, then that's roughly where everything goes wrong. If they're not going to learn anything to do with computing and computer science and computational thinking and automation between the ages of 14 and 18, then that's a massive gap in our youth. And if you do go to university to study computer science, they don't generally require you to have studied computer science, because so few do. So they then need to teach GCSE level content to 18-year-olds, whereas that just doesn't happen in other other subjects, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through. So I looked at the stats for this year. I know 2020 was a bit of a weird year for results, but I think about 76,000 kids finished the GCSE. And if we're looking at our pipeline of talent, then only 65% of those got above a grade 4. So the ones who are quite good at it. That's not enough for nearly every single job having a tech element in it, and are requiring all kinds of different people. So you can see why the pipeline isn't quite working. And we lose 90% plus. I think it's about 95% of girls do not study the GCSE. Some don't get the opportunity. It's not offered in their school. The teacher they might not have inspired them, or maybe it's the other boys that are going to do that subject and they don't want to be in a class with them, perhaps all on their own. So that's just the reality on the ground. So if we don't have a scalable, diverse talent pipeline, aware and prepared for the changing jobs market, then that's why CyberFirst is here. That's why we're in this space. That's why we're trying to do something different.
Patrick, sorry, just a quick question.
Fire away. Yeah.
So one of the ones we've had is one of the many bars to working in the intelligence community is the secrecy. So do you think there's value in expanding the grey area between information security and intelligence, and in the hope to enable people to be able to move in and out of it with ease?
It's a really difficult thing to move in and out with ease. The security clearance, getting myself security cleared to the level required to work in Cheltenham was for me about a year. Most people can be 6 months plus. So each time you go back into industry and come back out again, or from any opportunities, then that all needs to restart. So that's an issue. But what we do is, these courses, you will be exposed to elements of the intelligence community. If you come onto our bursary scheme, then 250, 300 students a year come into the bursary scheme. They're fully embedded within an intelligence agency, and we expect them to behave a certain way, and we treat them in a certain way. But they work in industry, they work all over the place. So that's our kind of way of blending that link between the intelligence agencies and what we do, and the reason why we're secretive. That I'm not allowed to use my face and employer on a thing like this, because people out there actually would like to kill me if given the opportunity and work out where I live. That's just the thing I have to deal with. We really wanted CyberFirst to become a government brand so we could hide who we were, but unfortunately that hasn't quite happened. The kind of hashtag Fatima situation was a good example of what happens if you allow one of your government agency partners to have a go with your brand, and damn near destroyed it. So we are where we are.
Fair enough.
Yeah, does that answer the question, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I was going to say great up until the point where you said somebody might want to kill you, etc. And I thought that probably wasn't an appropriate response at that point. But just in addition, we've just had another question just come through. So in addition to the secrecy, there's also the issue of obtaining your security clearance as well, which you can get without the role, but you can't often get without the clearance. Any tips on helping people get a step forwards in terms of trying to get a role when you don't have the clearance at that point?
Well, I mean, any role you apply for with us, we do the clearance ourselves for you until you start. We're beginning to find new ways of giving people things to do, because the NCSC has a big presence of what we called official, so not particularly classified, certainly not secret or above, so that they can do stuff before they start. So that gap between being offered a job and then waiting 6 months to a year for your clearance to come through, we're trying to address that. The department is having a massive look at itself, recognizing that it's probably if you wander around our office, whilst there's thousands of people that used to work there day to day, it's the beigest building you'll ever see, because the security clearance requirements and nationality requirements and links to the UK requirements are so favorable to people that have lived here all their lives. And whose family have lived here all their lives. So if we want diversity in our office, which is a target for our management, then we're really going to have to change that. Ironically, if we were looking for linguists, people who speak languages and help us with our intelligence work, we're just overrun with white women. So that's not great either. So that they have the exact opposite problem of us. We're overrun with blokes doing technical stuff. And they can't get any blokes to do languages in our organization, especially if they're coming from a different culture. So we recognize the issues, we recognize what's going on. Big steps are being made, but vetting and security clearance is a state of paranoia, and total paranoia is total awareness. which is their mantra. So if they can stop something and not take a risk, they generally will. And you know, trying to avoid another Ed Snowden or situation like that.
Makes absolute sense. Nice.
Okay, are we
Thank
good
you.
to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Right. Okay. So one of our main challenges, one of your main challenges, as you know, BCS, CAS, whichever hat you're wearing, is people assume computer scientists are nut jobs who they don't want to be. So you know, do they wear hoodies all day and work in the dark, hunched over a laptop? Do they just, you know, code in cells and caves, and they never talk to anyone or have any friends or any social interactions in their day to day? It's just grimness, all this kind of dark or scary imagery. You know, is that what a computer scientist looks like? You know, some gentleman, I believe he's French, and he is quite normal nowadays, but maybe there's hope for us all. But those are the images people think that's what career in computer science is all about, or cyber is all about. And how do we break that, considering the media really do not help us? You know, anyone who's a whiz with a keyboard and skills is not normally portrayed as an open, gregarious, friendly person. And normally it's the opposite. Look at James Bond's assistant, I think, in the current films. You know, very nerdy in the extreme, and that's just not representative of the people I generally work with. So we also need to show students where their talents are. You know, I know in Key Stage 3, the Roehampton report says, you know, the average kid gets 45 minutes per week per year in school of something ICT or computer science related to. People don't work out what they're good at in that really small amount of time unless they get other opportunities. So how do you know what you're good at unless you've had a chance? So you know, I'll be explaining how CyberFirst does some of that, but that is the challenge. People don't know the difference between different ways they can use technology, let alone you know what they're good at. And we want to use industry and people like me and people within the industry to help schools, you know, through all of the opportunities that we can possibly find to help you hit your Gatsby targets or create an enterprise type targets for employer encounters. That's what we want to do, but we just want to focus on digital and tech so that it begins to achieve some of our more strategic objectives. We want to help people work out the study path, you know, and it isn't just, you know, computer science, GCSE, maths, more maths, and then go to university and do a mathsy course. There's lots of other routes, and we want to explain that. And we also want people to just get a little bit better at using the devices. You know, we've got a bunch of kids who are great at using stuff and being early adopters and technical naturals. But if they don't understand, you know, how multi-factor works, how to defend themselves, how to segregate accounts and risk, then you know, update devices, backup devices, you know, have all those strategies in place, which are, you know, simple things, then that's not great either. And we have to do it all extracurricular. You know, we are not getting massive support from the Department for Education to put this stuff into the curriculum, despite the fact we feel there's a responsibility that it should be in there. But apparently the DFE have listened to teachers and schools and will not be changing the curriculum or subjects anytime soon. So we're trying to work with the NCCE, so the National Centre for Computing Excellence, DFE funded body to support computer science teachers key stage 1 to 5, the Careers and Enterprise Company doing all that kind of Gatsby benchmark stuff. I'm not sure kind of if we're on the Welsh side what the equivalent organisation of that is, but anyone, I think Careers Wales probably is it. And then we within the UK or within England anyway, we have the local education partnerships, the LEPs, as well as Department for Education, and there'll be localized versions of that depending on which side of the border you're sitting on. But working with those organizations who are supposed to be doing this, it's just we'd want to help them do it in a more techie, in a more digital focused way than you know every career for every student. So what do we actually want? I think I've alluded to some of this already. You know, we want to pick from varied candidates for the roles we want experts in. So that truly is diversity of thought, personality, background, and gender. You know, that's our ideal. That's our benchmarks, and they are really hard to hit. I'll give you that. I think our recent bursary campaign and an apprenticeship campaign, getting about 25% female, which is not great, but it's way better than nearly any other campaigns that exist within the tech domain. But I think it's 20-25% ethnic minority, so that's real positive. So hopefully we're doing some things right by making things inclusive. We don't target girls, we don't target ethnic minorities. What we're really trying to do is make our offer inclusive and hope that brings everyone along for the ride without patronizing them. really we want, cyber problem solvers, so that they can make really good decisions. If we let the techies make all the decisions, then we get very, unempathetic and unusable technical advice, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. And we want them to be available for UK PLC. This is not us just wanting staff for us, because that'd be dead easy to raise wages or give people really cool things to do, which we do. But we want everyone that we work with to be, as adept as us. And we recognise not everyone has the mission or the interesting things we have to do, so can't necessarily offer that. So we want lots of fish in a really big pond rather than fishing in a small pond. And not robbing Peter to pay Paul. So we're not trying to steal and take the best talent out there. We're trying to grow it for everyone. And then once the school system starts providing that, and we have enough people coming through this pipeline, then we can retreat to the shadows and be a hasty retreat to our comfort zone. Okay, so why do we need to do something at all? And here we go, analogy warning. I do love analogies, as I'm sure anyone who's heard me speak before will tell you. So I'm going to take the medical profession today. So if cyber was going to compare itself to the medical profession, how would it compare? Well, medical profession has loads and loads of different roles and jobs. We can go from the basics of an orderly to a receptionist, to nurse, to paramedic, to GP, to specialist doctor, to surgeon and researcher, and all of those different roles and all those different types of people who are all interested in doing things in slightly different ways for different reasons. The NHS, if it represents the medical profession, is varied. We've got all of that in cyber, forensics, law, pen testing or ethical hacking, systems administration, OPSEC, DevOps, so much stuff. And no one knows what any of that means. So our issue is how do we kind of replicate that? All those kind of roles seem to know how to get on with it. How do we do that too? So if the route to becoming a medical professional or a medical practitioner is to kind of study biology all the way through school and chemistry, get your grades, get really good grades, go to medical school, do that, then become a junior doctor, which is like your doctor apprenticeship, and then choose to specialize. Everyone kind of does all of that for those upper roles. We haven't got any of that. As I said, we lose 80% of people not selecting the computer science GCSE. We lose another 30% that get grades that are not awesome, and nobody knows what any of our roles are. Everyone meets nurses, everyone meets doctors at some point or other. Who gets to meet forensic analysts? Who gets to meet pen testers? It just doesn't happen. So we're having to find a way of making it make sense, much like the medical profession does. And we want what the NHS and the medical profession has. We want people to understand that there are different roles, different types of people do different roles. Some like researching things forever, and some like different things happening every day. The whole A&E versus a real deep dive researcher. We want people to know what suits them and what might be perfect. So we're going to go CyberFirst, defense against the dark arts. So this is why we're trying to present all of that stuff that the medical profession gets for free, in terms of people understand it, and they get incremental learning all the way through school, and people understand the subjects, and they understand the differences, they understand how it works, and they also understand they don't need to make a choice when they're 13 years old. It's just how do we, because as I said before, they make their specialist choices after they finish their junior doctor. How do we kind of replicate that for cyber when we don't have any of that? So apologies if the text is rather small. So we want those device technical workers. We recognize that the ones we get now are not necessarily got all the skill set that we want. So how do we get people with the skill sets that are missing, that empathy and charisma and natural communicating skills that come to other jobs? How do we get them involved in technical decision making? Well, we have to show them that there's a place for them too, and that there's a point to learning technical skills and it can help you do awesome stuff in future. So we try and put kind of technical examples and activities into real world context, rather than just programming a Raspberry Pi or a robot to do a particular thing to prove you can. It's do this kind of stuff because the NHS needs us to share anonymized data safely and securely across massive networks. We need people that can model pandemics and climate change and secure that data and acquire that data and automate stuff, and then secure all of that stuff so it don't get nicked or destroyed or compromised by people that wish it harm. That's our reality. That's what CyberFirst is trying to do. So we use CyberFirst as our brand to try and do those kind of things, to open students' eyes to potential use of technical skills that I hope you're teaching or aware of in schools. So what next? Okay, so this is our call to arms for the students. I doubt that post is going to work, but it amuses me. So this is our entire kind of CyberFirst catalog. This is the vast majority of what we do. It's all for free. If you want to go on our webpage, it's all there. This isn't secret stuff. So taking a bit of medicine and not being secretive all the time. But we have courses for Key Stage 3, so Trailblazers, Adventurers, just trying to wake them up to that fourth industrial revolution stuff, the direction of travel, and then we have them do a bunch of activities that are different in design that show collaborating type skills or mathsy type skills or building, designing, uncovering, investigating, showing them there's different ways of doing this stuff, but tech sits at the heart of it. And then we have our girls competition, which I'm going to talk a little bit more in a slide or two. And then there are our main courses, so CyberFirst Defenders, Futures, and Advanced. In a normal world, they're a week-long and residential. We pay for everything. That's the accommodation, that's the food, that's everything. The students just need to get there, stay Monday to Friday. We entertain them of an evening, give them things to do. So yeah, kind of 10, 11, and 12 for those 3 courses. We did it all virtually this year. Hopefully we won't have to do it all virtually in 2021, but who knows? So what's the point of all this? So Trailblazers and Adventurers and the girls competition is to open up more digital pathways, not necessarily cyber, just digital. And then we use Defenders for the year 10s. Anyone can join. It's first come, first served, and the spaces are 50-50 male, female. But this is pretty much about personal cyber defense, cyber hygiene, defending yourself with the devices that you have at your beck and disposal. Futures is more about considering cyber as a job and the kind of the biggest scale ways companies and organizations use tech rather than just the devices in your pocket. It's adding in the whole organizational network. And then CyberFirst Advanced is not more difficult, but it's kind of really showcasing the kind of differences between different disciplines in cyber. A whole day of doing crypto and the maths, and the whole day of doing forensics and that kind of process and meticulous work required for a forensic result and report. And then we can do some ethical hacking and pen testing type stuff. And then we can do the whole open source intelligence. So it's kind of showing students that if they choose something, this is what it feels like, because who gets to play with a forensic lab in school? Maybe in some places, but not necessarily all. Because we don't want them making choices, when they get to 18 into a discipline that might be wrong for them. So trying to give them as much experience and opportunities to ask questions and do stuff as possible when they're kind of 17 years old and in year 12. And also we're pushing the fact that we have 2 things there: an apprenticeship where we pay you to stay in Cheltenham and we give you a degree in cybersecurity over 3 years whilst you do your apprenticeship, and a bursary scheme where we give them all £4,000 a year to do any degree course they like in the UK. We're taking 200, 300 students per year into that bursary scheme, and we also give them work experience during the summer, so they get 8 weeks of work experience throughout all of the industry. So that could be Tesco's, it could be a bank, it could be with us, it could be with a defense contractor, cyber contractor, it could be in any number of organizations, but it has to have cyber at its heart and doing something useful. And we've built kind of an 8-week academy into that too, so that students who are not quite ready for work or don't feel they have enough background in cyber can learn that. And this summer again we ran all that virtually. So that's pretty much the CyberFirst offering. So we've got something nearly all the way through school, various points, as well as after they finish, when they go on to nearly become professionals.
And Patrick, just to ask, in terms of the Trailblazers and Adventurers, what sort of volumes are you getting through the sort of that age group of courses, the sort of 11 to 14, if you know off the top of your head?
So those things we share with schools, all the content. If you become a CyberFirst partner with us, or you become a CyberFirst school, we just give it away. So it's modular, so it's kind of 3 45-minute exercises ish per course. I think some are slightly longer, but you need a bit more kit. but the cadets run these for us now. So military cadets, other organizations have also run them for us in they've taken them into their normal curriculum. So it's hard for us to know that number now.
Okay.
But it's in it's in the hundreds. But we, it's always my opinion that if school had enough kit, which effectively is enough laptops for one each, preloaded with some stuff that the students can have a go at, that as teachers and or professionals, it's not hard. It's manipulating Excel, messing around with maybe a little bit of JavaScript, doing some creative type stuff. So it's all done on free software on the main. So pretty easy. So we're hoping that more and more of that gets done. But we have a budget, and if we did as much as we wanted to, we'd have no money left.
Yeah, absolutely. Understand. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. So there's kind of like millions of quid in this thing here. Right, girls competition. If any of you want to know about this, it's right at the right moment in time. Registration is open live. If any of you are out of school, you can register it now. For it now. It's been running since 2017. We're getting quite good at it now. It targets pre-GCSE choice year 8 girls, so they have a chance to see, wow, I quite enjoyed that. I might do the GCSE. It's our main point. Or they might even switch school to a school that offers the GCSE, which has happened quite a few times before. If we want more diversity in the sector, we need more girls in the tech pathway. If you wanted to go and have a look at it right now, once I finish my talk, obviously, the CyberFirst Girls Competition is live on the NCSE pages. There's a countdown clock. Obviously, that's a screenshot, so that's slightly wrong. It's probably 11 days odd now. But just go to it and you can pick up lots of resources, explains everything about how that all works. What are the requirements for school? So register team online, that's live now, so you can do that at any point you like, up until the end of the competition, which is 10 days after January 25th, which is when it runs. So even though it's running, you can still register. It's teams of 4 girls, so they have quite an enjoyable experience. If they're a mixed bunch, they can, some can do maths, some can be organizers, some can do the investigations, some can do the coding bits. But it's meant to be pleasant and extracurricular. This isn't something you do in school. This is something they kind of organize for themselves. It assumes no prior knowledge, so they don't need to know anything in advance. Schools can have no limit on the amount of teams, and teachers in schools, other than registering the teams and just sorting out that basic admin, that's it. That's all you need to do. So it's as lightweight as possible, and maybe in these COVID times, gives the students something really fun to do when it launches in, as I said, the 25th of January. What's the gameplay? So it's 10 days of online access, 24/7. It's all browser based. They don't need any particular kit. You can do it on a phone, but I wouldn't recommend it. It'd be a bit small unless they got one of those like massive phones. But keyboard is slightly useful. There's not much downloading of stuff, but occasionally you might need to cut and paste a photo and dump it into another website just to make it do some stuff. And any team member submits an answer, and then all 4, even if they're remote, they're not going to duplicate it because it's all built to replicate that teams of 4. And then we have regional finals, so someone could be the champion of Wales. If you're in England, up your neck of the woods, champion of the North or champion of the Midlands, depending maybe where you are. And then we have a grand final after that. Normally, it's a big showcase event. We've done Edinburgh Castle, Cardiff Castle. This year, it will probably be a computer somewhere near you. But if we get the opportunity, we will do the final in the physical, because it's such a great opportunity to for the girls to encounter professionals, see like-minded people, and really get an experience. We also have a website that supports our efforts in Gloucestershire. If you're looking for resources, looking things to have a look at, then there's lots there. There's an e-mentoring scheme for CyberFirst schools. So there's also lots of videos about students and what they think of cyber, which you might find useful. So that's the cyberhub.uk. And if you're interested in maybe pointing the students at videos or encouraging them to have a go at the girls competition, whether boys or girls, there's lots of stuff here. Our girls competition is split into kind of 4 different disciplines: logic and coding, networking, crypto, and the catch-all for everything else cyber. So that we have 4 days across here with each of those categories, and then an international day at the end. So there's videos, there's kind of knowledge nuggets, there's lots of stuff that could help you out there. And then for CyberFirst schools, if you're at a school and you wish to become a CyberFirst school, currently any school in Wales, Northeast England, Northern Ireland, or Gloucestershire, but that is expanding to the entire Southwest, can apply to be a CyberFirst school. We're judging our latest round of applications this week, tomorrow, and a few days after. We're doing all of those, and then the next round will open up on the 15th of February for schools in those regions to become CyberFirst schools. So if you want to have a look on our website, then it's all there, and it can kind of show you what it is. So why would you want to be CyberFirst school? Why would it be different to a normal school? Given that all this stuff's available to everyone, if the teacher's keen enough, why bother becoming a CyberFirst school? So we try and help curate a journey, curate experiences, dovetail with all of those other opportunities out there, with all those other organizations out there, and try and help you as best possible, depending on your personal circumstances and the school's location and the industries around you and who we can get to support, to really make the computer science and computing curriculum fly, and then support students when they're interested or ready. Personal mission of mine is how to get more digital into other lessons. I mentioned data scientists before. That links really nicely with geography. How do we get a data scientist to come in and support a geography teacher in the teaching of the geography curriculum, so that students see that link between technology, between job opportunities, and between the love of their life, if it is geography. If it's history, could we get someone talking in about the provenance of sources, how you research sources, how you uncover fake news, how you break all that down? Those are all kind of history skills. So we're trying to bring that to life. Can we get someone in who does that research role, even for social media or for recruiting, and just show them that it's such a link to kind of what you learn within history. That's a thing that could increase that amount of time that kids do something technical. Not necessarily careersy, but they're kind of learning that the things they're learning have a use in a technical context in subjects and careers they might like. And what we're trying to do is template ways for industry or CyberFirst ambassadors or kind of our graduates from our schemes, the alumni, to support schools as much as possible. This is my kind of model of what a CyberFirst school's in, the different layers that it's trying to have a go at. And kind of the coloring is bronze to gold, with silver obviously in the middle, which are the grades of school that we recognize depending on the things that they do. So could we teach students the cyber fundamentals, that's cyber hygiene? Could we then showcase contextualized digital careers? Could we then show them that computing is just a tool to do amazing things no matter what you want to do? And then can we provide them with the knowledge to equip them to do that? So, if it's CyberFirst, CyberAware, and other products to do the fundamentals, if it's a careers agency like the Careers and Enterprise Company or Careers Wales, or DCMS's local digital skills partnership, LDSP, or the local enterprise partnerships, or CyberFirst speakers, can that help too? With the computing is just a tool, can we do hands-on activities to show them that it's not just for programming? And finally, can we work with the education providers, the NCC, and teachers to really make their content come alive on top of all of this stuff? That's what we want to do. That's kind of the build of a CyberFirst school in the various things we're trying to do. It's building that ecosystem of how do I get young workers, apprentices, people in academia, mixing and interacting and trying different things and asking good questions and seeing the relevance of learning stuff and then what you can do with it later. So so they're personally cyber aware, they've raised their aspirations, they're engaged with the topic, and they've been taught good stuff.
And Patrick, just on that, actually, yeah, we've had a relevant question. So in terms of if someone is further through their education, in terms of a bit later on, maybe in up to university, is there options for them to start getting still part of the schemes, or is the moment passed by that point?
For the bursary program, they can apply only when they're in their first year of university. And the reason we say that is it's a development program, so we need summers to get them to do work experience and try different things. So if they're through a year or two already, there aren't any summers left. So they would just be nominally we'd give them money and then they'd be ready for employment, and we wouldn't have given them a chance to try stuff and get them to kind of experience stuff. So unfortunately for the bursary, probably not after year one. For the apprentices, we take different ages all the time. So if they're wanting to leave university, which does happen, and join our apprenticeship, that's always open. Those applications normally start being made the September of the year before you want to start. And it's September because we give you loads of stuff to play with, have a go out, see what you like. Then we select for interview, then we do the interview, and then that finishes around January time. And then we do security clearance for the next 6 months and onboarding so that they're ready in September of the year that they finish school or start their second year of university, ready to start the bursary program.
Okay,
Does that
great.
cover that?
Thanks. Does.
Okay, cool. Right, what does good look like? So CyberFirst School does things strategically to allow, that careers, context that I've covered, personal perspective elements so people feel engaged and not just kind of theoretical stuff, that they get some citizen skills and that they get comp sci foundational knowledge, and that all these kind of cyber pathways are illuminated. If you're wanting, some basic cyber hygiene tips, and they are quite basic, then we do, host the cyber aware stuff. If you fancy having a look at that, it's top tips for staying secure online, which effectively breaks down into, locking your device, having a, secure password, and we suggest, 3 random words is something people can remember and is pretty secure. Having the latest operating system on the latest devices and patching and backing up. So, using multi-factor where possible, but nail down your email account if nothing else, because if that goes, that's normally the key to everything else. So that's our starter for TEM, and perhaps something to take students through as well. So there you go. That's our NCSC's top 3 tips: separate password for your email, 3 random words, and save them in your browser, which is fairly rebellious now. I mean, people for years have said don't do that, but we now think that's as good as anything. Okay, so I've done roughly 45 minutes of constant talking, which is roughly what I promised that I was going to do. I have my nerdy joke.
I like that one. Good.
I've got that on a t-shirt somewhere. I really like it. So.
Well, we've had a couple of questions come through actually, Patrick.
Cool.
So, I mean, firstly, just to say thank you very much. I certainly enjoyed it, and I know it's very difficult without the sort of the people's faces in front of you to be able to see how things are landing, especially when obviously you're such a humorous person. You need that feedback. It's like a stand-up comic. But what we'll do is I'll just rattle through a few questions, and if people could keep them coming in as well, I'll do my best to put them in front of Patrick. But one of them, just to follow on from the last question, is around if you did want to join the bursary and apprenticeship sort of scheme, are you expected to obviously move to the vicinity and down to Cheltenham to take that opportunity?
So the bursary is anywhere in the UK.
Okay.
So because you're going to university, so we are not educating you. You are educating yourself. So that's utterly independent of Cheltenham. The apprenticeship for cybersecurity is in Cheltenham. We have our own teaching facility, we have our own trainers, and it is one amazing opportunity for the right type of student. And when I say the right type of student, some kids need to go to university to find themselves and explore and do stuff. And I think those that need that should, and those that are sure of themselves and they're steady and they just want to learn and get on with it, then I recommend for the apprenticeship. But I think if you want to cut loose at some point, do not become our apprentice. They get full security clearance. They are utterly marshaled. It's 9 to 5 all day, every day, well, Monday to Friday. But for the right students, it's amazing. You get to try all the jobs in the building. Most of us in the building, we only do 2 or 3 jobs in our careers in the building, whereas they're going to do 6-month, 5-month placements all around in all the different departments. It's really exciting. So yeah, for the right kid, that's an amazing opportunity. But as I said, it is in Cheltenham. Although we do have a software engineering one up in Manchester. So if they just want to do that software engineering, that's a slightly different thing. That's not a cyber thing. That's a very techie thing.
Okay, great. So another question then is around, do you think that the CISP is a good certification? Obviously appreciating that people need experience as well to get the full certification, but do you think it covers a good range of skills?
People can learn to pass any certificate, and it doesn't mean they're any good in the real.
Yep,
so
completely.
I would say that to any certificate. I'm not going to pick on a CISP. But if you need a starter for 10 to get you through the door, why not learn some of that stuff? Because what it should show you is, in theory, as you learn that broad range of things, which bits do you like the most? and that's always a good thing. You know, if you really don't like crypto and really don't like forensics, for example, then you know that content can sometimes give you a good thing to talk about at an interview. I believe most recruiters, whilst you know it might get you the initial opportunity to be interviewed, the last thing they're really looking at is certificates. However, some employers want their staff to have all the certificates, so it's kind of, there's no right answer, but I think, you know, whether you do CompTIA, whether you do, you know, CREST or European Council stuff, then you know you've got to start somewhere. But I guess it depends on what you're aiming at, and if CISP or any other is the route in that most recruiters are looking for, then it's always great. But we are trying to, I mean, I find work experience and talking to people about their work experience, to what they like and what they don't like, is much more useful than things that they have studied.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I suppose I'm a CISP, but my rationale for going down that route was to demonstrate the experience that I'd gained, rather than to you know, be able to put it on a CV sort of thing. It was a culmination. But yeah, I agree. I don't think there's no perfect certification route. I would always, even as a recruiter myself, I always look for relevant experience, and it might be a talking point. But yeah, I'd always rather there be people with both, but you know, obviously. But if I had to pick one or the other, I think I would still always go down the experience route.
Cool.
But again, personal preference.
Yeah, absolutely, mine, absolutely.
So in terms of I suppose taking you back to your spy days, what did a typical day look like? And obviously I know you've been in various roles, but what did a typical day look like when you were more on the in the field sort of thing?
Okay, so as a, let's say a follower of internet footprints for intelligence purposes, so tracking targets and trying to acquire knowledge about them, and insight into their intentions. You start with a problem. You know, I want to learn more about this person. I want to learn what they're planning. I want to learn who they communicate with. That's on your list of things to do, and then you break your day down into, how am I going to answer some of the bits I don't know anything about? So if you spend hours and hours trying to work out what a particular communications technology is doing or works, or whether we can you know, gain access to it, then that can be a how the day works. But you break your own day down. You're not sitting there with, you know, small tasks that you need to do so that they're done. Of course, there is a little bit of that, but on the main, you're managing your time and attempting to achieve the objectives that you've set for yourself. So that's one kind of a way of running your day. You know, there's also lots of, you know, self-learning that you have to do. People keep switching technologies, switching stuff, so you need to, you know, kind of stay on top of that. And then I worked in the incident management team, so, you know, kind of hacks, notifying people that things going wrong on their networks, notifying seniors about what's going on, notifying politicians about what's going on, and then sharing as much information as we could back to those organizations, saying, you need to look at this IP address. This is where kind of bad things are occurring, which showed me that I'm sure an awful lot of people I spoke to, who probably had loads of professional qualifications, did not understand how IP addresses and how protocols and how DNS worked, because if it's not covered, they didn't know it. And yet, you know, I'd ring them and say, look at this IP address on your network, and they say, well, which machine is it? I said, well, I've got your external IP. You're going to need to know your internal one. Where's your logging? And they just didn't have a clue talking about. So, you know, and it's that lack of knowledge of it, inside IP address space and private side, external real world IP address space and protections thereof, and where we see stuff, and that just showed me how much, you know, how much work needed to be done to get IT professionals working in security positions to understand the basics of how stuff works.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even now you can see that there's this want to jump straight into the really exciting stuff without some of that foundation knowledge, and actually learning about private public IPs, routing, you know, the basics of subnet masks, and even all of those things are just fundamental things that I suppose, having been in IT a while, there was more of a push down that route earlier on, and certainly in my career, where people had to know those basics. But now things are so easy to just plug and play that that's probably gone away a little bit. No, I mean, one of the things I was personally going to ask was about the continuous learning, because obviously it's such a fast-paced, cybersecurity is always changing all the time, different attacks, vectors, ways in, methods. How do you, or how does, I suppose, NCSE, GCHQ stay close to that? And what links do they have to industry to actually find out what new things are coming along? And, what sort of links do you have?
Yeah. So we recognize that that's an issue for us, staying up to date with what's happening on the ground. So we have within our organization a scheme called I-100, and when we were set up a few years ago, it was our aspiration to have 100 people who work in industry with particular skill sets and jobs that are interesting to us, who can come and work in our building as normal people for a day a week. So this works really, really well within incident management and understanding of malware and cybercrime. So somebody from the real world, a real organization, a real entity, whether it's a defense contractor or retail or banking, can come along with stuff from their networks and say, this is what we're seeing. Do any of you within the group have a clue what this is? Or something really bad happens, let's say SolarWinds, that compromise in the States a few weeks ago, and then everyone tries to work out what their organizations know to work on how to counter it. So that's a way that we can get real world, network facing professionals working with our intrusion analysts, our incident responders, our malware researchers, so that we have the most holistic overview of what's going on in the real world, given the stuff that we encounter is in the what's called the SIGINT world, so just signals intelligence. And if we don't see it, if we can't capture it on a device that we might have located somewhere or other, then we're never going to see it. So we need people to bring stuff to us with real context, and if they say, like, this box gone down, we haven't got any idea why, can you help us? In that we think it's new and we think it's a branch of whatever piece of malware it is, then that allows us to stay a little fresher. It keeps those people from industry really interested, because they get to play in the secret world, and they get to come into our building in London and work with and collaborate with experts in their field, which is great for them. So that's one way. We are encouraged all of the time to continually upskill and learn new things and be aware of stuff. So the first few months of the pandemic, I did 6 weeks of online training. We called it Technical Reconnect, and it was just trying to go back through all of the basics of our advice and then learning how to do it in reality. Microsoft Teams calls for 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, I thought was hell, until I realized my day job is Microsoft Teams calls Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and it is absolute hell. So,
yeah, it is, yeah.
But it felt worse back then, because it felt like it was training and it was really boring. Well, not boring, it was really interesting. I just didn't want to be in the summer in a room all week. Whereas now it's dark and I don't even see outside. So yeah, so that culture is really encouraged.
Oh, that's great to hear, actually, and it's absolutely what is needed to happen in terms of continuously keeping your skill sets up to date. And it's really nice to hear that actually that's a fundamental part of being part of that team, and making sure that you have to continuously update your skills. Quite often people don't get the time to actually keep your skills up to date. So yeah, that's very good. So just another quick question on the apprenticeship scheme. In terms of a top age limit, is there one for applications? Because one of the questions that's come through is that, what about somebody over 50? Could they apply on the apprenticeship scheme?
I've interviewed a 40-year-old woman, so I don't think we have a top end age limit. They're going to have to demonstrate that they're really, really keen to learn and have an affinity for learning quite technical stuff, because that's the basis for everything we do. So they need to be able to get that degree. We don't want to set young people up to fail. We don't want to set old people up to fail either. But you know, if a salary of, I think, just under 20 grand, and being controlled 9 to 5, 5 days a week for 3 years is something a 50-year-old could be comfortable with. I don't have an issue with it. You know, I wish I could do our apprenticeship, but I couldn't live on that salary and not have my wife kill me. So yeah. Fair
enough. And I suppose one of the other questions to follow up on that was about people that have maybe found themselves on the wrong side of the law and maybe took a, you know, the slippery slope, and found themselves maybe being arrested or prosecuted, etc. If somebody has gone down that route and they're wanting to obviously right their ways and maybe come back and try and do things for the positive step, is that something that's encouraged?
Yes, but perhaps not with us. And the reason I say that is reputation and risk and civil service are uncomfortable bedfellows when somebody can accuse us of employing criminals, former criminals, or people who've done criminal stuff. But that doesn't mean that there aren't loads of other opportunities very similar to ours. So even within, you know, industry, there are lots of cyber type apprentices, and they can be much more open-minded about past stuff. I believe Microsoft only recruit now off LinkedIn notifications and links. So if you write to their recruiters and say, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is what I want to do, you've got a way better chance of working for Microsoft than you have, you know, waiting for the advert of adverts to come out that's perfect for you. So anyone who's gone down that route, if they're honest about it, upfront about it, and can demonstrate that they're not going to be a risk, and anyone working in the tech sector, the customers need to know that they are not dealing with people who are potentially you know, insiders looking to, you know, find out their secrets and exploit them, and you know, the money's all gone. So that would be on a case-by-case basis, an industry-by-industry basis, but we always, you know, recommend you know, keep a clean nose, because, you know, national security and criminality are difficult bedfellows. But that doesn't mean people shouldn't be given a second chance. It's just as government and with security clearance and with a paranoia of our vetting officers, then, you know, pretty much doomed if you did anything, you know, remarkably bad or remotely bad. That would have attracted a criminal sentence.
Okay, fair enough, understandable. So one of the other questions just come through is around sort of Cheltenham and London has been mentioned. So in terms of other hub locations, we'd like full addresses and photos, ideally. But yeah, are there other hubs? I mean, I'm aware of Manchester as well, but
yeah. So we have a, you know, big new office in Manchester. We have the longest running signals capture location in Scarborough, given it faces a certain ocean and a certain eastern bloc on the other side of the ocean, and maybe shipping traffic, you know, bouncing around in the stratosphere. There's a location down in Cornwall. There's a location in London, obviously, and Cheltenham, and then some kind of smaller places, as well as, you know, around the world. Anywhere kind of hot and dusty where there's people killing each other generally has sub support from military and us. But yeah, Manchester, London, Cornwall, Yorkshire, pretty much, and London are our bases.
That's great. Well, unless there's any final questions, I can't see any coming through. But it's certainly been a fascinating talk. We've had plenty of people engaged. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time out to come and talk to us, Patrick. And yeah, lots of people just saying thank you. It's been a great talk. So we shall leave it there. And yeah, thanks for taking the time, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon.
Okay, well, as you can see on the screen, I do have an email address, so cyberfirstschools@ncsc.gov. If you want to send me any feedback, any comments on the talk, then feel free. It is one of my mailboxes. So give it a go.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we should be sending details out on our next talk pretty soon. Yes, I look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.